It'll take just a second to actually hit the page, but it could go live at any moment. My screen is white and blank pretty much until it hits, and I think it has. Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert with the Ted Show. I have today, very excited, Clay, welcome.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
I love your background. I mentioned earlier before we went live, while I'm sharing the show, if you'll tell them what that background is, and then tell them a little bit about you, because it's been a while since you've been on the show.
Yeah, of course. So the background is the Museum of Natural History in Paris. And it's a place I have not been yet. I have always wanted to go there. I've been looking at pictures of it in my life, since childhood. So lo and behold, I needed a background for something, and it's, kind of a place I'd like to be right now. Unfortunately, I am not in Paris.
Yes,
though and that may be a good thing, because there are so many major cities around the world that are really suffering with what we have going on now. This is quite an unprecedented time for almost everyone alive today. I don't believe that there are any survivors of the Spanish influenza of 1917, 1918 alive any longer. So this is truly something that is unprecedented for anyone alive today.
And how are you handling that? What are you doing to stay, before we dive into nonprofits?
I'm really well, on a personal perspective, right? Because I think that this is a chance for everyone to kind of refocus themselves, right? Life doesn't normally press the pause button ever in life. And people are getting as close to a dose of that as they can. Now, of course, there's an economic nightmare right on the horizon, which certainly keeps people from relaxing. But it's really important. I've been experiencing more sleep. I've realized that this is probably the longest break I've had in 10 years. Right. And maybe the longest break I have for another 10 years, right? Once the world turns back on. So I'm treating it that way. Right. And I'm doing a lot of thinking and planning and plotting and writing and these kinds of things. Of course, I've been really pleased at how many people and organizations have been reaching out to me to talk about these issues, whether they're environmental, whether they're economic, whether they're social and humanitarian related. A lot of the things in my world, in my wheelhouse, touch on those issues.
So tell us a little bit about, did you already tell us about Ideas for Us? And
I haven't yet,
but give us a little background on what you do. Okay, good.
Sure. So I'm a biologist and I'm executive director of Ideas for Us. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We started our journey in 2008, transitioned into a 501c3 in 2011. And our whole concept is creating solutions that are environmental in nature, but address a whole host of humanitarian and social challenges around the world. So we do this in many different ways, but we're Orlando born, starting at the University of Central Florida in a dorm room back in 2008. And now we're a global UN accredited NGO that does work in 30 different countries around the world. We're grassroots, of course, so we really look at issues from the ground up. And these can be things like urban farming. These can be things like solar electrification programs, maybe on rural hospitals, maybe in communities to irrigate fields for urban ag and rural agriculture. Working on tree plantings and pollinator gardens and teaching people about sustainability as a whole. So it's a busy time for us, to tell you the truth. It's a busy time for Ideas for Us in really looking at what is the best niche that we can occupy in a post-COVID lockdown world. We know that we're going to have to very boldly and bravely take on this challenge. And I can talk about some details of how we got into figuring out what that means when we move on in the conversation.
Sure. No, I mean, I think it's important. I think you do, with what you do and all of the things that you have done and accomplished, I would imagine that people are really wanting to pick your brain as to what it's going to be like how this is all going to roll out, for lack of a better word, after May 3rd or whenever the lights come back on.
Yeah, and
How
that's
people, go
yeah,
ahead.
I mean, and that's it. I mean, you said it right. You've got to roll out on this, right? You've got to think big as your organization. This isn't the time to go hide in the corner, right? And you think about, can an organization survive if it lays off its entire team, right? And we knew from the moment of making different kinds of decisions of what's best for Ideas for Us. I mean, Ideas for Us was my 9 to 5, meaning my 9 p.m. to my 5 a.m. for 5 years of me being just a volunteer, right? And I say just, meaning that I wore way too many hats and, treated this as my true beating heart passion, right? And, so this was before we had any paid staff for the organization. So I think that nonprofits need to try to really look at the heart of what it is that they do. Can their mission survive? And, does it necessarily have to have paid staff? Now, in many cases, the answer is absolutely, because nonprofits are businesses, right? And they're, of course, cause and focus-based, mission-based, mission-led, but they also have to have revenue models to meet the need of whatever their mission is. So these are seriously taking a hit, and many nonprofits have had a big wake-up call about their finances. So it's
Because
been
this is fundraising season. There's a couple of times a year. This is one of them. Lots and lots of end of the year, quote unquote, fiscal year fundraisers, and people aren't able to get out, and they're trying the virtual world, but because they have never tapped into it, they're not having the success they want. So I love what you said, though, about the fact that they need to figure out what their relevance is and how they're going to bring that into the new world. Because I think a lot of people also don't know that if you have grants, if you get federal grants or any kind of grants, you can't just be an all volunteer organization. There's got to be some sort of paid staff, or you look like you can't operate. So you have to think of it like a business. So what are you hearing from the nonprofit world? What are you hearing as far as what they're doing, and maybe give them some ideas of what to do so that they're not caught when it rolls out, absolutely no plan in place?
Yeah, I mean, right now what you hear in the nonprofit world is two paths, right? One of them is the path of the fact that the house is on fire and what are we going to do? And the other concept is this is a time of opportunity, right? And it's in reality a bit of both. Every single nonprofit is being impacted because even if they are in a very good financial standpoint, and maybe they have 6 months or more of operating budget in the account, which is rare. It's rare for businesses as well, for-profit companies, to have that kind of operating expense with staff costs and things like that included. So they're having to improvise, right, and figure out what is the best path forward for them. And then there is definitely truth to the fact that this is an opportunity, but it may not be an opportunity in the way that immediately meets the eye. It may mean an opportunity that boards are going to have tough decisions and tough discussions that they've been putting off. Maybe the relevance of the impact of someone's mission and the cost expenditure of their budget to the impact that they're actually making, and how they're measuring that and what their key performance indicators are can transition to. And ultimately, reassessing those kinds of things makes for better organization. At Ideas for Us, we do that every single year. We have a board retreat every year where we all come together for a weekend. And for 16 hours or something like that across 2 days, we just hammer at everything from the past year, redesign, reimagine, address, air all of the problems with the organization on the table, and refine that every year. A lot of organizations don't do that. Either they
Why
don't
don't
have
they do that? That's such a great point. Why don't they want to examine themselves so that they can do better? I have a degree in this. My master's is in healthcare with a nonprofit focus. So I know for a fact that nonprofits don't like to examine themselves. Small businesses either. I'm not picking on nonprofits, but it's so critical to do that every year? What is the reason that they don't like to do it?
Well, people don't like to do difficult things, right? For a lot of reasons. It requires a level of honesty, accountability, responsibility, right? All of those words are scary, right? To a lot of people. I'm in the camp where I believe the more responsibility that you take on for yourself and for others, the better your life becomes.
Yes.
And I try to bring that into the nonprofit work that I do. Not all organizations have the capacity. Sometimes their mission is different in the way it addresses things. Maybe it's more intellectual and esoteric. Maybe it's a magazine or a scholarly journal or a blog, right? And that's the nonprofit, and it's composed of people all over the world. I think now more than ever, if people had some reservations about technology, and video conferencing to do these kinds of things, it's probably disappeared by now because they've been pushed into it from this. So hopefully organizations that are now truly global, right, can use these kinds of tools to do just that. But you know, it's free. All it costs is time, and the technology's free in many cases to just bring your board together, bring your organization together and talk about these kinds of things. Because right now what organizations need to do is, number one, look at their mission and their relevancy. They need to be crystal clear on their finances. They need to have definite, decisive leadership and not dilly-dally about decisions. They need to make them. If they're going to lay off their staff, lay them off. Don't make them wait 4 or 5 weeks before they all can apply for unemployment, or and of course be very clear and communicate with them about these things and let them know that they're welcome to come back when the organization opens back up again, if that's the case, you know, based on the decisions. So it's an interesting time.
Let me ask you, it is an interesting time, and I think people are looking for creative ways to do anything, but as you and I both know, in the nonprofit world, fundraising is just so much of everything, because you can get grants, but you have to do your own internal fundraising. What should people be doing now? What should people be doing to prepare? I don't see us having big banquets in May or big galas in June. I'm not even sure when that's coming back, but what should people be doing in order to be ready for the fundraising arm, which they have basically given up? Most of the organizations have gone on low-key nothing that I've seen. So what should they be doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's sad. I mean, no organization should go low-key nothing. You know, I just had an event on April 17th, which was Ideas for Us Day. Mind you, Mayor Dyer did a proclamation in 2019 declaring that Ideas for Us Day. So we brought together people from 10 different countries, right? And we did a 90-minute, maybe longer event online talking about different countries' responses to COVID-19. Right? So there's a lot of things that cost me $0, right? There's a lot of things that organizations can be doing right now to spread their message and stay relevant. Now, I think that there's definitely some important soul searching that they need to be doing as an organization, for sure, and just try to navigate those waters as best as possible.
So how about on the fundraising side? Because that's what people don't know what to do. They don't. I feel like the craziness out there has led to a lot of paralysis, and so they don't know what to do when things come back online.
Yeah. So number one, don't wait. Right now, talk to your donors. Right. Every organization has a list of maybe their top 5 people that have been champions for their organization. Maybe they've donated consistently every single year and not a tremendous amount of money, but clearly they're watching you and believe in what you're doing. Maybe it's someone who's, you know, written you that big check out of the blue, or a corporate relationship you're courting. Call these people. They're human beings. Check in on them. See how they're doing. Maintain a relationship with them. You know, be sincere in how you want to, you know how they're doing, right? And don't ask for any money. Just keep the channels of conversation open. Honestly, let them know how you're doing. Let them know what your organization has decided to do, right? And then as the world turns back on, very clearly ask them, where are you in your giving this year? How, can you be candid with me of, should we expect a gift from you as we did in 2019 again? Are there people that in your circle that are in a position where they're looking for a nonprofit to work with because of this? And here's what we're doing in response. Are you interested in funding these types of programs? Bring something to them instead of just waiting for them to come to you. That's never going to work. It's an absurd strategy to do.
I love that you say just be upfront, because I think that's where there's a lot of head burying when it comes to asking for money, and especially right now, because people don't know who have been furloughed, whose companies have downsized. But you still have to be able to have that honest conversation, because you still have to plan, you still have to know what's going on. So if you have anyone who's not comfortable doing that, you probably want to move them, my opinion, move them to a different position rather than the one who's talking to your normal, regular, full-fledged donor group.
Of course. And, there's opportunity too in people who are donors and are philanthropic to decide how do they make their impact, right?
Yes.
They're seeing organizations that have had very big overhead topple, right? And not that there's anything wrong with overhead, but it takes a ecosystem in order to keep an organization like that running. Maybe to get it started up again, it's a tremendous expenditure of capital. So a lot of people who are potentially philanthropic are thinking about, okay, where can I put my money to have the most impact right now? We're in a crisis. Well, one of the things that I do as well is I set up nonprofits for people. I have a company that I handle all of the 501c3 filings for someone. I trained their entire team and really put my perspective as a global nonprofit expert right into this package for them. And I've set up now over 42 different organizations, all the way back, including Ideas for Us back in 2011. And I'm working with 2 doctors right now that would normally be donating and active in philanthropy. And one of the things that they're focused on now is working on infectious disease and different kinds of health-related issues and the training of other physicians in the developing world, right? Because they're seeing our ability to handle a response here and look at how stretched our healthcare system is. Supposedly, we have the greatest healthcare system in the world. I think we've got the best doctors in the world, but I think that the healthcare system leaves a lot to be desired. But imagine a completely emerging country, right? Democratic Republic of the Congo is going to have a lot more of a difficult time addressing something like this, especially with the need for ventilators and technology and all of the things to save people who become very ill. So there's a lot of good that can be done right now. And I think that the nonprofit organizations are thinking, what do we do and how do we evolve? And the donor is thinking the same thing. How can I help and where's my money best served?
I think you're 100% right. Any friends of mine who are regular donors for whatever their particular nonprofit is, they are looking for ways to donate, but what they're doing is they're trying to have an honest conversation with the organization, like you mentioned before. All right, where is this going to go? Are we just dumping money so that you can stay afloat? Are services still going to continue? I think being able as a donor to have that honest conversation as well. Not that you're trying to judge or pick apart the way the organization does it, but I think that the new operating world we're going to be in, it's a fair question to be able to ask as a donor. What are you going to be doing the rest of the year? What's the plan? What is the check going to go to? Because the more that you can get them involved, nonprofits, the more you can get your donors engaged. My experience is that is just better overall. If they have a heart for it and they have a commitment and feel like they've got skin in the game, not just with a check, then you are going to have more active donors. And sometimes those active donors, and they should, ask questions that you might not want to answer, but I think it's important for the organization to be open.
I mean, if I mean, and I can speak from both sides of the fence because I donate to plenty of organizations throughout the year. So I am a donor, a philanthropist, but I'm also on the other side of the fence in that I'm the chief fundraiser for Ideas for Us. And you know, I would never donate to an organization that wouldn't be able to tell me where the money was going, and wouldn't be willing to have some kind of dialogue with me. Um, if you're donating to an organization that's maybe so huge and has so many billions of dollars in some cases, um, and you're wanting to make a difference with them, I recommend looking into what is an organization locally to you that's a small nonprofit that's maybe addressing the problem at a different way than maybe a global NGO. Maybe it's hyper localized, and maybe they're helping people who are dealing with homelessness, right, or cancer, but directly in your community, and donate to them. I think that it's important to really spread around this kind of philanthropic impact, because it's the small organizations that are able to address these localized issues at the pace from inside the community, at a level of, I think, finesse that a lot of these giant monolith organizations can't. And they both occupy a place in the ecosystem of trying to solve these huge human issues that we're facing, and they both have a place to play that role. So we've all got to make those decisions too.
We had some questions. I agree. And Jim Hobart, and I can't read from this far, but I saw Jim and Constance Jones. People are sending you some love and shout outs, as they should. But we'll get to all of those, I promise, after the show. Grants. I had people ask about grants. So grant season, we'll roll up into the one that will go for 2021-ish, whatever, depending on the fiscal year. What are you seeing or what are you hearing as far as grants? Are grants going to be completely shut off? Is anybody going to be applying for those this year during the normal time they would? Or is the money just not going to be available?
Everyone is in a state of, I think, perpetual motion right now, I guess. We're all just kind of pedaling in place, unsure of what's going to happen. It goes both ways. Foundations that I've been working with, and getting on track to partner with us for extraordinary projects in 2020 have said, whoa, this whole process is canceled for now. We're going to have to reach back out to you later in the year. We're at full stop, right? Perfectly fine. Completely understood. Then you have other foundations that are putting out RFPs right now, right? So they're looking for people and organizations to stand up and meet the need. If you've had foundations that have supported you in the past and you're looking to be supported again, please call them and reach out to them. If you're looking at finding support from new foundations, call them and say, look, here's who we are. We're doing XYZ. We have been doing these things. We've pivoted in this way to address the need in the community in a more efficient, better way post-COVID. And here's our budget. And, can we send you a grant proposal? They're used to those kinds of things and those questions, especially if you have a relationship with them. Ask that kind of stuff. If it's a new foundation that maybe doesn't take any requests unless they invite you, don't call them and piss them off, because if they say that, they're usually serious.
They're totally serious.
They're totally serious, right? So take people to respect them, right, for those kinds of things. Now, that doesn't mean you can't call them to ask another question, right? So this is where I invite people to be creative, right, about these kinds of things. But you can't call and say, hey, I want to send you a grant proposal. But it never hurts to introduce oneself. Let me put it that way.
Correct. All right. We have consumer questions too. This has been the one. It's funny when I post in the morning, Clay, then my message, people don't want to post on the actual post. They want to message me. So we had a lot of people ask, what can a consumer do? What can a person who's either been furloughed or maybe they don't have the check writing capabilities? What can somebody like that do right now, as we're hopefully getting to the end of the quarantine and in the beginning? What's the best way for them to get involved if it's not with a checkbook?
Yeah, reach out to the nonprofit and ask. Don't assume anything. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So you want to ask that nonprofit, what do you need? How can I help? Is it showing up to help distribute food at a soup kitchen? Is it maybe bringing masks or PPE supplies to the elderly? Is it trying to do something nice for healthcare workers? See where you're needed. The nonprofit will know. And it's because they're an expert in that, right? So reach out to great organizations in the community that are doing things, reach out to Ideas for Us, and many, 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 many more that are stepping up to accomplish things, and see what they say. So that's my advice for that. Oh, and share this video, of course, on your page. Feel free to tag friends that are in the nonprofit sector. I'm here to help. I'm working with many different organizations right now and giving advice and those kinds of things, to help kind of navigate these uncertain times. And
how do people reach you?
They can reach me many ways, Ted. The easiest way to reach me is probably by email, which is clay@ideasforus.org, IDEASFORUS.org. There's also Facebook, of course. My public page is @ClayOnEarth. And you have tagged me in my personal page as well here. So that's another great way to reach out to me. If they forget all of that, they can bother you, and you can certainly connect me to them.
Absolutely.
And I certainly appreciate that. Whether people are looking to set up a 501c3 right now and gain access to the suite of different things that I do in that department, the writing of their bylaws and all of their policies and the filing of the paperwork and the training of their team, or if they're looking to find a way to get involved with what we do with Ideas for Us, right? The sustainability response to this, right? And remember, sustainability is the nexus of environment, social, and economic, right? Where those Venn diagrams overlap is where we are. We know that we're going to be meeting a lot of food insecurity with urban farming. We know that we're going to be doing a lot of online organizing for a while, so we're getting practice in doing that. We're creating a lot of online events as well, especially with Earth Day coming. So you can check all that information out on Ideas for Us's Facebook page. And we're going to be doing a virtual climate strike with hopefully hundreds of people across our movement. So exciting stuff.
You're a joy, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always awesome to have you. I loved seeing you when we did the Aura thing before we all shut down as well.
Yeah.
I could listen to you for hours. Guys, he's just as wonderful and friendly and as accessible as he is on the show. So reach out to Clay. I know a lot of people are considering doing a 501c3. If you haven't done it, you want somebody to help you with that, and that would be Clay. It's a organization journey in and of itself.
Number 43, number 44. Thank you, Ted, and for everything that you do in the community. You're such a champion for so many people, entrepreneurs and the helpers out there that are looking to just have their voices heard. So you're the man, Ted. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, love you to pieces, guys. Reach out to Clayton Ferrara, and I already tagged him. Thanks, buddy. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.